Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Stockton. Glad to have you along this week, and we've got a very special guest on tap. And before we get going, I want to remind you to go to iTunes and subscribe to the Stockton Podcast. That way you'll never miss an episode, and be sure to follow Stockton Podcast on Facebook and Twitter. Also, one of the really great things about doing this podcast is the chance to interact with you, the listener. So I want to hear from you. If you have a question, a topic, an opinion, or just want to reach out and say hello, then here's all you need to do. Send us an email at info@stocktonpodcast.com. Once again, info@stocktonpodcast.com. And a reminder that at the end of each episode, I'm going to do something called Taking Stock, where I'll give you my take or opinion on a topic. Agree? Disagree? Regardless, let me know, because I really want to hear from you. And today, I'm going to be talking about Tiger Woods, who returned to the Pro Golf Tour and will be playing a good deal more in 2017. Now, on to this week's podcast, and it's a real treat for me to welcome in a guy who was arguably one of the most dangerous Major League Baseball players to ever step up to the plate. Possessing incredible overall talent, he was a 3-time MVP, a 14-time All-Star, a 2-time Gold Glove Award winner, was the AL home run leader 5 times, and MLB batting champ, was the youngest player to reach the 500 home run plateau, and still holds the record for most Grand Slams in a career with 25. And we know he had his problems as well. He was suspended for a year by Major League Baseball for PED. He came back after his suspension and ended his career with great fanfare and tremendous flourish in 2016. He's just an all-round good guy, in my opinion, and it's a pleasure to welcome in Alex Rodriguez.
My pleasure.
Alex, I think a lot of the people in the baseball world and the audience out there were taken by a storm at how you performed on the Fox studio in the playoffs in the World Series. I mean, I think you were embraced as somebody who not only had some intelligent things to say about what was going on in the field, but the warmth that you exhibited, the friendliness, the way you were able to handle Pete Rose and all the other guys on the panel, and the give and take you were able to do. Number one, did this exceed what you thought this was going to be?
Dick, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I played in the big leagues for almost 23 years, and I've done that more than half my adult life. So when Fox asked me last year to come on, I was quite nervous and excited. And I think what made this year extremely special were the two teams, right? The Chicago Cubs have waited for over 108 years, and the Cleveland Indians for over 65 years or so. And it was a tremendous series. We have a great team. I mean, if you think about the executives with Shanks and John Entz and Bardia, they do a terrific job of leading us. And then we have a terrific anchor quarterback in Kevin Burkhardt, who I think is a future Hall of Famer and is just an incredible talent. And he allowed, Pete and Big Hurt and myself to go out and talk the game of baseball that we all love.
It's so easy to say that, and you're right about it. I work for the same company. But a lot of people have gone in there, and they have been okay. A lot of people have gone in and didn't come up to, the level. You exceeded that level. And I wanted to know what the feeling has been, the groundswell of support that you obviously had. It was a very human experience, I think, seeing you there that obviously we didn't always see in post-game interviews or in interviews with the media, especially in New York. And I wanted to know how easy it was for you, how difficult it was for you, natural. Tell me about that.
You mean on Fox?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was extremely difficult, especially year one, where I didn't know where to look. I didn't know what the red light meant. There was a couple producers in my ear telling me this and telling me that. And it wasn't till like the very end that I started feeling more comfortable. And then, of course, the Kansas City Royals beat the Mets. But I think coming into this year and not being such a novice, it was helpful. And, Dick, I love the game so much. It's easy to talk about the game that I love. I did prepare quite a bit. I'm a worker. That's just the way I like to do things. And I had a lot of fun. But it was certainly a team effort, and I've been extremely pleasant with the way things went this year.
You know, you say you love the game so much. That was apparent. And, we know about your travails, your great, incredible achievements as a baseball player. Were you able to love the game all the way through this entire career? The ups, the downs, all of those things. Did you still love it as much all the way?
Look, I mean, the answer is I loved the game, but I had some unbelievable highs and some incredible lows. And I think I've learned great lessons from both. Overall, after I served my suspension, I came back, and I wanted the end to be different, Dick. I wanted to really focus on relationships with the Yankees, with the commissioner's office, with the fans. And I wanted to be an example for my daughters moving forward and end the game in a good note. And I got to tell you, when Hal Steinbrenner gave me the opportunity to have a night in Yankee Stadium in front of my mother, in front of my daughters and friends and family that flew in from everywhere, and to do it in front of the fans of New York was quite special, and it's a night that I'll never forget. So, yeah.
They applauded you. They embraced you. I think the fans appreciated you because you were, I've been watching baseball since 1951. I've seen everyone. I saw Willie Mays make his catch in the 1954 World Series. I saw him hit the home run against Warren Spahn at the Polo Grounds after he was 0 for 21 and begged his manager, Leo DeRocher, to send him back to the minor leagues. He was in tears. He said, "I'll never make it." Leo said, "You're going to be my center fielder today and forever." And we know what happened with Willie Mays. So you loved the baseball. You loved all of it. I've seen the kinds of, forget the numbers. I mean, I know that's what they go by in baseball, but I've seen the way you've performed. And so when you leave the game, did you feel fulfilled finally?
I do, Dick. And you know what? I think for me, coming back after the suspension was incredibly important. I mean, if you think about the arc of my career, you can arguably say that the best 2 years was when I was 19 years old and when I was 40. And I thought that was important for me personally and emotionally to go out at 40 years old and do what I did. It was something that I was incredibly proud. And although we didn't go very far in the postseason, we did make the postseason when most people thought that we wouldn't make it. And now I have an opportunity, whether it's via Fox or other projects that I do, to be a voice for the game like you've been for over 40 years, as someone who has loved the game for a long time, made major mistakes. But I've always said, and it's what I said to kids now, Dick, when I go around, is, look, we're all going to make mistakes. You don't have to be defined by those mistakes. How you come back matters, too. And I think that's a great lesson for me and for all of us.
What did you tell your daughter during your time off, during all of this? How did you explain everything to her?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it was the most difficult part. That is a great question, because I was just thinking about this just a couple of days ago. And it was an important lesson for me and an important lesson with my relationship with my daughter moving forward, because I thought one of the things that I had to do was be extremely honest with those around me that I love and with the fans, but especially the ones that I love. And it took about 4 months of building courage to finally tell my daughters the mistake that Daddy made, and I thought it was important to do that. And they both hugged me and said, Daddy, we love you, we support you. And I thought that was the boost that I needed to move forward and get back on the horse and try to do it again. And I got to tell you, when I showed up to camp, no one knew if I would make the team, including me. I didn't know how my hips were going to react. I didn't know if I was going to get enough at-bats or get off to a good start to even get the plane off the ground. And I was extremely fortunate to start off in spring training well, got off to a good April and May, and, the rest is history.
So any regrets at this point?
I mean, sure. I mean, you have regrets, Dick. I have plenty. But I think what you have to do is you have to get off the mat, wipe yourself off, and learn from your mistakes. And when you come back, be a different person, be a different player. And for the most part, I think I've done that. But with that said, I feel like I'm still, rounding first base, kind of getting into second base, and I have to continue to build on what I've started here the last several years. I do think that when I look back at the suspension in 2014, it's going to be something that is a pivotal turning point in my life, not just in my career, but in my life. And now I have an opportunity to go out and hopefully be a voice and an ambassador for our game.
So you're a second base. How do you get to third base, and how do you get to home plate now?
I think it's kind of what you've done, Dick. It's not just what you do in 2 years or 4 years. I mean, you've done it for over 40 years, and that's why I'm a fan of yours, as are millions of fans kind of around the world. And for me, playing for 23 years, almost 23 years in the big leagues, it's a whole body of work, right? So I have to just continue to do what I do and think about anything that I do today has to have a double bottom line component. Is what is it doing to give back and make the world a better place? When
you were at Washington Heights and you were playing baseball and you weren't sure whether you were going to go to football or baseball, I know University of Miami recruited you as a quarterback. Did you ever thought about, and I knew you were good at what you did, about what would happen, what you would achieve in the big leagues?
Never. I mean, I don't think anybody in their right mind can tell you that they think they're going to play 10 or 15 years or 20 years. I mean, never 20 years. And to hit home runs and be part of the New York Yankees and be part of a world championship team. As a kid, the only thing I thought about, I said, I really hope that I get to play for Ron Frazier and get a scholarship to the University of Miami, because my mother has 2 jobs and she certainly can't afford a private school like the University of Miami. So that was my goal. And then from there I wanted to be the quarterback and the shortstop at the University of Miami. And then it came to I tell you, if I can play 1 day or 5 years, and then I went to 10 years. And your goals keep getting a little bit bigger and a little bit more clear. And that's exactly what happened with me.
Did you ever consider football professional?
Not professionally. I was always disappointed that I didn't have an opportunity to play shortstop and quarterback at the University of Miami. We have a very rich tradition down here with the Canes. And I thought it would have been a lot of fun to try to win a world championship and be the quarterback at the university.
Now, I've got to ask you a couple of baseball aspects. Number one, you played for the Yankees and Joe Torre. Your relationship with Joe. Get inside to you and Joe Torre.
So Joe was a great teacher. Look, I mean, there was obviously some complexities to the relationship when I first came on board in 2004. Joe was a great teacher. We won a lot of games together. I learned a lot from Joe, and there was many days. The one thing I remember from Joe, I'll never forget, is I was struggling mightily. It might have been my first or second year, and it was a Sunday day game, and everybody had gone home, and Cynthia, my wife, was outside. My ex-wife, Cynthia, was outside the locker room, and he literally brought us both into his office. He gave me a bottle of wine. I think it was a Screaming Eagle, and he gave me a cigar, and he said, Go have a nice glass of wine with your wife. Have the cigar. Do not show up for batting practice. Just come out, play the game. And I came out the next day, and I think hit 2 home runs. And that was kind of like the epitome of Joe Torre. He was a great leader, great communicator. And I think today our relationship is better than it's ever been.
When I watched you play, and there are only about a handful that I could say this with and say this about, and I know it's kind of almost ridiculous to say it. Sometimes it looked too easy for you.
It certainly never felt that way. I mean, the one thing that I think a lot of people don't see, and Dick, you know a little bit more because obviously you're inside our game, but is the amount of work that it takes to just be a Major League Baseball player. There's only 750 spots, and to have a roster spot for over 22 years is something that I am so incredibly grateful. But what fans don't see is when you show up at 6 o'clock in the morning in Tampa in spring training, in the backfield with Larry Boa, the amount of hours before and after games, the amount of video that you watch, the commitment level, the things you have to sacrifice. And then the other thing is, getting demoted 5 times in 1 year when I was 18 years old. It was something that I'll never forget, and it was very painful, but it built great strength. So I'm glad it looked that way, but it was definitely very hard.
Okay. As one of the most dangerous hitters, Alex, can you think of one particular pitcher who gave you the most trouble and one that you couldn't wait to get to the plate to face?
I thought pitchers that gave me the most trouble were north and south pitchers. Where there's a Curt Schilling that can throw the ball in the high 90s up at the letters, and then have a devastating splitter to strike you out. Those guys gave me a lot of trouble. I mean, I've never seen a better pitcher than Pedro Martinez in 1999 when he was with the Red Sox. I mean, he was literally unhittable. He had 3 pitches that were all devastating. And you drive to the park saying, boy, I can just make contact twice tonight. It would feel like 4 hits. And then the guy that I just absolutely love, who's a good friend, is Bartolo Colon. I mean, for whatever reason, every time he pitched, I felt like something good was going to happen. And, give Bartolo a lot of credit. He just kept coming after me for like 15 years. He never backed down. That's why in my opinion, why he's so successful to this day at 42.
Based on your style of play, is there an A-Rod in the game today or a potential for one?
Look, I think there's a lot of players out there that are so talented and it's so much fun to watch. I can't say, Dick, that there's one player out there that is the best player in the game per se, but I see a collection of maybe like a dozen just really, really great players. I mean, from Correa to Bryce Harper to Machado, just so many good ones. And I think the game is just in a great place. I love to watch. I watch every night. And I think baseball is at the tipping point when you think about the leadership we have with Commissioner Rob Manfred and Tony Petitti, and when you think about the young players and the absolute opportunity and potential to grow the game globally, whether it's China or Mexico or Cuba or think about London. NFL and NBA have really carved out a nice space for them. I think we're still at the very beginning space. So I love where the game is going here in the next 5 to 7 years.
And on that tone, Alex, knowing what you know about the game and how it's evolved and what you think the future is, what advice would you give to a youngster coming up today?
Well, I would say number one thing is, you have to be grateful for the opportunity to wear a Major League Baseball uniform. That's number one. Number two, there's no shortcuts. You have to work your absolute tail off because the game is so competitive. You can hit 300 one year and find yourself sitting at home the next year. And then third, I would say surround yourself with really good people that have a moral compass that can actually lead you to help you be the best version of yourself. And those would be my tips.
Let's talk about, I've been impressed always with your poise because you've never lost it. They talk about how Eli Manning of the Giants has the perfect temperament, and he is from New Orleans, Mississippi, to come to New York and be able to handle, what the demands are from the media, of course, and he has not had it as tough as you had it. Tell me how you were able to maintain your poise in, the glare and what worse that you had to face from being in New York in the, maybe not great times.
I think it all starts with the passion, the love, and work ethic. I mean, just realizing that, baseball's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And in that journey, you're going to have ups and downs. But if you keep yourself in great condition and you work hard and you prepare, that ultimately you're going to do fine and you're going to help the team win. I do think, Dick, that I was much better post-suspension than pre-suspension. And I think the year off, when I served the whole year, it gave me an opportunity, again, to press the pause button and reevaluate the way I wanted to do things and focusing more on team and winning and relationships and having a lot more fun and being self-deprecating and poking fun at myself and laughing at myself and also really enjoying the fans and my manager and what we're trying to do together and collectively. And I got to tell you, I wish if I can go back, you talk about regrets, I wish I played my whole career like I did my last 2 years because it was a lot more fun.
How would you describe yourself before you came to this realization during your year off?
I just thought I was just very serious. I took the game maybe too serious, if you can say that. And I probably didn't have enough fun. I was focused on other things, maybe like more numbers. And, when I came back, the only numbers I cared about was winning and how many laughs we had and how many guys can we get together after the game and have a nice dinner or have a beer and just collect those type of memories. And regardless whether I did good and bad, and I did both post-suspension, I maintained a good attitude, and I still had fun, even in my struggles, even last year before I got released.
You know, Alex, it's called maturity. I think that people get it at different times. I even noticed at my career the difference, and how looser I have been in the last 8 to 10 years. And I'm a heck of a lot older than you are right now. So I think that happens with maturity, don't you?
I think so. And look, if that's the case, I'm a late bloomer. So I hope that's good news for me. But what I realized is, look, when you're the first one to laugh at yourself, I mean, it's pretty disarming. And you work hard, you have a good attitude, you go out and you give it your best. And if it doesn't work out, you strap it on the next day and you do it again. And no matter what, I think that's a much, much healthier attitude. And just the game is too difficult. And if you don't enjoy it, and it could be a very long season. It
sounds like you're very much at peace with yourself.
Look, I'm happy. I have 2 beautiful daughters. I'm a full-time dad now. I get to be involved with organizations that I'm indebted to, like the Boys and Girls Club and the University of Miami. I not only get to give them my resources, but more importantly, I give them my time. My daughters down here, you talk about a social butterfly in between schools and events. I'm busier than a Manhattan Uber driver. I mean, I remember last weekend they had like 9 different social events, and it's a lot of stress, but it's a lot of fun, and I'm enjoying it. Now I get to be a fan of the great game of baseball, which, by the way, it is the best game in the world.
Well, it's the sport I grew up on, and there's no question about that. Way back in the Polo Grounds, I don't know if you remember the Polo Grounds. But
I don't, but Dick, if you allow me, I would love to ask you one question.
Sure, many as you want.
I know that 75 was your first World Series. How special was it to cover the Red Sox versus the Reds when you were just a young lad?
Well, it was amazing, and Alex and I, I'll tell you this: it was the first year that I had done baseball, and it was the only World Series I was in. And in the year before, the Red Sox were thinking of hiring me, and I'd never done a baseball game, and I did an audition tape for them, and they told me it wasn't good enough, and then they told me to go back again. And by the way, it was 7 times. I had to go back and do a Yankee game. They were playing at Shea Stadium because they were refurbishing Yankee Stadium. And only after the 7th time did they say that I was good enough for them to hire me. And so here I was covering this team, and as a youngster, and I worked with Hawk Harrelson, okay, and he was my partner. And it was a great combination because I was a city guy and he was from, Savannah, Georgia. And we were totally different, and we had a blast because we had, the Goldust twins and Jim Rice and Fred Lynn and Louis Tiant and all of that. And the Yankees were supposed to win because they had signed Catfish Hunter, and it didn't work out that way. And now the Red Sox win, and I find myself getting a telegram that I'm going to be asked to do the World Series. And I find myself in the 6th game, and after a couple of days of rain delay, people were saying, let's get this series over with. And that was the night that Fisk hit the home run, and I happened to be at the right place at the right time. And it really brought baseball back because at that time there were 3 World Series. Even though the Oakland A's were dominant and won those series, they weren't exciting. And this one kind of brought the sport back. So it was a phenomenal time. And, Alex, as you know, you never know when you're going to be at the right place at the right time.
Yeah. No, the reason I asked, I was born that year, but it also reminded me of this year, just being a part of the Chicago Cubs, winning in 7 games and having a lead change in the 8th inning of Game 7, and then having an 18-minute rain delay. For someone who's watched every World Series since, since 1985, since Kansas City beat the Cardinals in Game 7 with Saberhagen, that's as an exciting as World Series, and so privileged to be a part of it.
There's no question about it. There have been great moments, but this was a series, as you said, and you know what? What you're really saying is you're not a hardened guy who played baseball for 22 seasons and, okay, I've seen it all. Wow, you were taken with it, and I think that's probably why you performed as well as you did on the set because of Cleveland in their own right, by the way. If it weren't for Chicago, everyone was saying, hey, having Cleveland in it is special. And then to see that series go the way it went and have the rally and the come-from-behind deal and in the 7th game, it really, I think it was the greatest World Series of all time.
Yeah, there was a magic around it, and the contrast of styles between both fan bases were absolutely great. But what you get to see is you get to see and feel the heartbeat of the cities. I mean, Cleveland Indian fans were so excited. They were so loud. They were so thrilled. And then you go to the Cubs in Wrigley Field, and there was this coating of nervousness around the stadium that was pretty interesting. And the bars were open at 7 a.m. I remember we did a show with Mike and Mike at ESPN, and Kevin Burkhardt and I go in, and the 7 a.m., the bars are absolutely packed, and people are drinking and are having a good time. And I describe it as a Super Bowl for 7 days in a row, and, it was just fascinating to watch.
It was great. And, I know that Joe Madden has been on a kind of a campaign tour about his doings in the seventh game. Were you talking back and forth? What was your thought about the way it worked out? Great for Madden, obviously in the Cubs, but were you surprised at some of the moves?
I was certainly surprised. I said after Game 6, kind of forecasting a little bit for foreshadowing for Game 7, that it was a great night for the Chicago Cubs and a tough night for Joe Madden. And what I meant by that is I felt like a boxer, you only have so many punches. You only have so many bullets. And, using Chapman the way he was used in Game 6, I thought could come back and bite him. And it did for a minute, but, good for the Cubs and good for Joe Madden that they were able to win.
We're talking with the great Alex Rodriguez, who has retired after an incredible major league career. And, before we wrap it up, I wanted to ask you about the Hall of Fame. I know Mark McGwire is a friend of mine, and we all know about Mark McGwire's situation right now. He's been a batting coach for several clubs in the big leagues. And he has said, look, and I know Mark is sincere with this. He says, it doesn't matter to me if I get into the Hall of Fame. And a lot of people say, well, that's crazy. He does. But knowing Mark and the way he is and his temperament, he does feel this way. What about you?
Look, I would be lying to you, Dick, if I said it didn't mean a lot, of course. I mean, any kid, you first dream of, being in the world, making it to the big leagues. Then you think about winning a world championship. And if you have any chance to make it to the Hall of Fame, of course, I would love to get in. But, I don't have any control of that. What I can control is to be a great father, to be a great leader in my business, and to be a great leader in our community and to give back.
Well, I having seen baseball for, maybe half a century now, I know one thing. You're a Hall of Famer. To me, there's no question about it. The volume of your work, you talked about, all the years that you put in, the longevity, the numbers, what you meant, and the way you handled yourself in the game. We know that there was a blip, and maybe a major blip in there, okay? It's happened to other people as well. I know one thing, that if my dad took me to Cooperstown, New York, and said to me, and I said to him, Dad, who had the most base hits in the history of baseball? He'd say, well, Pete Rose did. Well, why can't I see his plaque? Why can't I see? Why isn't it here? And he may tell me why, and I'll say, I don't care. He did something. I would say the same thing about Alex Rodriguez. Tell me about the really great. He'd say Alex Rodriguez. That's how I feel, and that's why I think that kids would want their fathers to be able to show them the bust of Alex Rodriguez in the Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
Alex, I have to thank you for joining me. I appreciate your candor. I appreciate your being a friend, and I wish you the best as a father and running a business and following your baseball dreams in a new area. You are a passionate lover of the game of baseball, and you can't get better than that. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. It was great to have Alex Rodriguez on our podcast today. And now it's time for Taking Stock. And as I said at the outset, the return of Tiger Woods after a layoff of 466 days following back surgery and rehabilitation. I think he was the man who raised golf interest on television the most since Arnold Palmer, and he competed in the Bahamas. And so what happened when he returned? Well, the great thing is that he was healthy. He was able to play 4 rounds, and hopefully he continues on the right road and doesn't experience a recurrence of the debilitating injury that required the surgery. Seemed to me he swung with authority, if not accuracy. He made 24 birdies, but he also had 8 bogeys and 6 double bogeys, but that's not the point. The fact that he finished 15th out of 17 entrants also may be a non-headline. And he won't be rushing back to the tour either. He's going to play some tournaments, but not all of them. And you know, the majors is what really brings him back. Maybe important as to how he viewed the weekend. It was obvious that he missed the game. And he appeared to me extremely grateful that he could actually play golf again and compete for those 4 rounds without pain. In the past, finishing 14 shots behind the winner would have left him sullen, non-communicative, and times rude. Not this time. So we know the good and we know the bad. But Tiger expressed his confidence that he can still make a charge to catch and surpass Jack Nicklaus's all-time record for most championships won. Nicklaus captured 18, Woods has 14, and I don't really know about that. I don't think so. Tiger Woods, 41 years old really, the pro golf panorama is filled with young, talented players who will never be intimidated by Woods as they were when he was in his prime. So age has to work against him, and to win majors for the most part, you have to be playing at an exceptionally high level. And the question is, can Tiger Woods ever get to that point again? Well, getting back into the golf groove, he'll once again be a magnet for attention to the tour. And whatever fate befalls Tiger, I wish him the best. But I also wish he softens his demeanor on the course, his penchant for expressing disgust after a shot, his obvious use of obscenities, and his acting unprofessional at times. I also wish his off-the-course personal life would take a giant step in the right direction. Be a human that everyone likes, not only because he can play golf. And I really believe Tiger Woods has learned from his life experiences, spectacular as they were at one time and ugly, embarrassing as they were as well. All I can tell you is that time will tell. Want to remind you that if you have a question or an opinion, just want to reach out and give your thoughts on anything, here's all you need to do. Send us an email at info@StocktonPodcast.com. Again, that's info@StocktonPodcast.com. We want to thank our engineer, Scott Person, our producer, Peter Lyon. Hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Stockton is produced by Collisions, the podcast division of CRN International. Collisions, podcasts for curious people. I'm Dick Stockton. Till next time, so long, everyone.